Welcome everyone to Bookaccino Live. We're going to start with your top picks from November. Remember November? 2 months ago, November, remember that? These were your top picks. The Mitford Affair, Secluded Cabin Sleep 6, Louise Penny, A World of Curiosities, The Exiles by Jane Harper, Flight by Lynn Steger Strong, and Codename Sapphire by Pam Jenoff. And you're here a little bit about some of these. Yes?
Carol, I'm so sorry, but it's not showing up.
Okay, hold on, we'll start again. I am so sorry, folks. Screen share. Give me 1 second. Screen share. Okay, just give me a minute. Give me a minute. I don't want to have to go out and come back because that will be very bad. That will take a long time. Here, let's do this. Let's try again. Tom, tell me if you can see it.
Okay, yeah, now
you can see it? Can you see it, Tom? I'm here, he's not. Can anybody see it?
You have started screen sharing.
Okay, can you see it?
Okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start the video. Hold on 1 second. I am so sorry, folks. This is not usual. I think they've changed a lot of things in these last couple of weeks on Zoom. Okay, let's see. Zoom recording. Welcome, everyone. So these are your top picks from November. We've got The Mitford Affair by Marie Benedict, Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 from Lisa Unger, A World of Curiosities by Louise Penny, Exiles by Jane Harper, and Flight, Lynn Steger Strong's book that came out, I want to say that came out in December, and Codename Sapphire by Pam Jenoff. So there were your top picks. We slid in 6. Usually we do 5 just because we knew that you were going to want to be seeing exactly what's going on. And I'm trying to get this slide to go forward and it is not letting me. And I cannot figure out why. Okay. I don't know what to do, folks. Give me a minute. I am so sorry. This has always worked. There we go. In answer to your survey question that we gave you in November, are you in a book group? 74% of you are, 21% are not, and 5% would like to be. So we're going to see if we can help you figure out how to do that in the next year. Next, we're going to start with fiction today, and we're going to talk about our fiction titles that we're really excited about sharing with you. The first one is The Bandit Queens. I just love this little cover with the eyes by Parini Sharaf. It's on sale now. It's January's Barnes & Noble Book Club pick. Here's what happens in the book. 5 years ago, Geeta's no good husband walked out on her, and she has no idea where he is. But in her remote village in India, rumor has it that Geeta killed him. It turns out that being known as a self-made widow comes with some perks. No one messes with her, harasses her, or tries to control her, which also means marry her. It's even been good for business because no one dares to not buy her jewelry. And now other women are asking for her expertise, making her an unwitting consultant for husband disposal. With Geeta's dangerous reputation becoming a double-edged sword, she has to find a way to protect the life she's built. But what happens next sets in motion a chain of events that will change everything, not just for Geeta, but for all the women in the village. They've got the Bandit Queens. Next, we've got Sam by Allegra Goodman. I read this over the break. It's January's Read with Jenna Today book club pick. And the one thing I really loved about this book is the voice. It starts out in the voice of a young child, much the same that we saw in Room and in Hollywood Park. And so as a result, when you're reading, you're not seeing just infantile language, you're really into the head of what the child is thinking and the way that they're thinking about themselves and how they see themselves in the world. So Sam is 7 years old. She adores her father, though he's not around much. Her mother struggles to make ends meet and never fails to remind Sam that she has to study hard and act responsibly, then adulthood will be easier. But comfort and security are of little interest to Sam. She doesn't fit in school, where the other girls have the right shade of blue jeans and don't question the rules. She doesn't care about jeans or rules. All she wants to do is climb. She climbs up the doorway of her house at the beginning of the book, and then she starts to climb other places. hanging the highest limbs of the tallest trees, scaling the side of the building. Well, that's when Sam feels free. So the teenager, she starts to doubt herself. She yearns to be noticed, even as she wants to disappear. When her climbing coach takes an interest in her, his attention is more complicated than she anticipated it would be. It's a very interesting book. I heard an interview with Allegra the other night, and I am interested. I'm going to be interviewing her next week for a Book Reporter Talks To interview. So there we've got Sam. Next, we've got The Deluge from Stephen Markley. It's on sale this week from Simon & Schuster. In the first decades of the 21st century, the world is convulsing, its governments mired in gridlock, while a patient but unrelenting ecological crisis looms. America's in upheaval, battered by violent weather and extreme politics. In California in 2013, Tony Petrus, a scientist studying deposits of undersea methane, receives a death threat. His fate will become bound to a stunning cast of characters: a broken drug addict, a star advertising strategist, a neurodivergent mathematician, a cunning eco-terrorist, an actor turned religious zealot, and a brazen young activist named Kate Morris, who, in the mountains of Wyoming, begins a project that will alter the course of the decades to come. It's a big, thick book. It's by the author of Ohio. And yesterday, Stephen King proclaimed this to be one of the best books he's read. He was totally in love with this book. Next, we've got Small World from Laura Zigman. It's just out this week. A year after her divorce, Joyce is settling into being single again and has developed a secret comforting hobby, trolling the neighborhood social networking site Small World for posts that help solve life's easiest problems. When her older sister Lydia calls to tell her she's moving back east after almost 30 years away, Joyce invites Lydia to temporarily move into her Cambridge apartment. You see where this is going, folks. But instead of forging the bond she always dreamed of having with Lydia, the relationship frays, and they rarely discuss the loss of their sister Eleanor, who was significantly disabled and died when she was only 10 years old. When new revelations from their family's history come to light, will those secrets split them further apart or course correct their connection for the future? It's really interesting because Laura actually has a sister who was born and died before she was born. So she's got a lot of reflection on what it meant to have somebody who is not a part of the family, but is a lot of part of the family traditions and what all the memories are of the family as well. Next, we've got Mammy by Jessica George, which is coming on January 31st. It's fair to say that Maddie's life in London is far from rewarding. With a mother who spends most of her time in Ghana, yet still manages somehow to be overbearing, Maddie is a primary caretaker for her father, who suffers from advanced stage Parkinson's. At work, her boss is a nightmare, and Maddie is tired of being the only Black person in every meeting. When her mom returns from her latest trip to Ghana, Maddie leaps at the chance to get out of the family home and finally start living. A self-acknowledged late bloomer, she's ready to experience some important firsts. But it's not long before tragedy strikes, forcing Maddie to face the true nature of her unconventional family and the perils and rewards of putting her heart on the line. Just think this is such a colorful and upbeat cover for winter. Love it. Now we're going to do some historical fiction, starting with Moonrise over New Jessup, which was a literary award winner last year, and it is by Jamila Minix. In 1957, Alice Young steps off the bus into the all-Black town of New Jessup, Alabama, where residents have largely rejected integration as the means for Black social advancement. Instead, they seek to maintain and fortify the community they cherish on their side of the woods. In this place, Alice falls in love with Raymond Campbell, whose clandestine organizing activities challenge New Jessup's longstanding status quo and could lead to the young couple's expulsion, or worse, from the home they both hold dear. But as Raymond continues to push alternatives for enhancing New Jessup's political power, Alice must find a way to balance her undying support for his underground work with her desire to protect New Jessup from the rising pressure of upheaval from inside and outside their side of town. And when I said this was a literary award winner earlier, it was the PEN America Literary Award winner. It's out from Algonquin this week. Next, we've got Independence by Chitra Banerjee. I'm going to see if I can do this again. Diva Karuni. Diva Karuni. It's on sale on January 17th. In India in 1947, in a rural village in Bengal with three sisters. Priya is intelligent and idealistic, resolved to follow in her father's footsteps and become a doctor. Deepa is the beauty, determined to make a marriage that will bring her family joy and status. Jamini is devout, sharp-edged, and a talented quilt maker with deeper passions than she reveals. Theirs is a home of love and safety from the violent events taking shape in the nation. And then their father is killed during a riot, and even their neighbors turn against them. When the partition of India is finally decided, a drastic and dangerous change is in the air. The sisters find themselves separated from one another, each on different paths. They fear for what will happen, not just to themselves, but to each other. So we've got three sisters, their deep bond, and the struggle for India's freedom. Next, we've got the book that was your number one choice for back in November, and it's on sale next week. I have started reading an advanced reading copy of this now, and it does not disappoint. Alison Pataki actually said this is nothing short of astonishing. The most, let me just see this, the most delicious storytelling. And I have to agree with that line. This is a delicious book to be getting into and reading. So we've got the Mitford sisters. There's 6 of them. And between the world wars, each is more beautiful, brilliant, and eccentric than the next. They dominate English political, literary, and social scenes. Though they've weathered scandals before, the family falls into disarray when Diana divorces her wealthy husband to marry a fascist leader, and Unity follows her sister's lead all the way to Munich, inciting rumors that she's become Hitler's mistress. As the Nazis rise in power, novelist Nancy Mitford grows suspicious of her sister's constant visits to Germany and the high-ranking fascist company they keep. When she overhears alarming conversations and uncovers disquieting documents, Nancy must make excruciating choices as Great Britain goes to war with Germany. And really, the setup in this is at the beginning, we've got Diana at this fabulous event. Her home is spectacular. And really, like a chapter later, she's divorced and her husband is giving her, the furniture and everything. And she has set her eyes on following this one fascist leader and where it leads her from there. It's absolutely fascinating to read. And yes, it's delicious. Great line. Next, we've got some thrillers and mysteries. Tom, was that our only historical fiction? I have to have Tom jump back on. I thought we had one more. No, I guess not. Okay, thrillers and mysteries.
I think we had
we had those. That was it.
3, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Next, we've got thrillers and mysteries, and we know you love that. We've been asking, there's a poll running on Bookreporter right now, and we're asking you which genres you like the best. And if you could just hop on after this and go answer that poll, it's great for us because we constantly have publishers saying to us, what kind of books do your readers like to read? And then I can quote right off the poll, this is what they're interested in. And we can go from there for bringing on some promotions and giveaways for you. So for thrillers and mysteries, okay, we've got The Age of Vice by Depti Kapoor. This is January's Good Morning America Book Club selection, and it's the #1 indie next pick. New Delhi, 3 a.m. A speeding Mercedes jumps the curb. In a blink of an eye, 5 people are dead. It's a rich man's car, but when the dust settles, there's no rich man in at all. Just a shell-shocked servant who cannot explain the strange series of events that led to this crime. Nor can he foresee the dark drama that's about to unfold. Deftly shipping through time and perspective in contemporary India, Age of Vice is an epic, action-packed story propelled by the seductive wealth, startling corruption, and bloodthirsty violence of the Wadia family, loved by some, loathed by others, feared by all. In the shadow of lavish estates, extravagant parties, predatory business deals, and calculated political influence, 3 lives become dangerously intertwined. Just sounds like one of those books that you're going to get in and you're going to see all kinds of stories and who's doing what to whom. Got to get my hands on this one. Next, we've got The Black House by Carol Johnson. And this is Simon & Schuster's book club favorite pick for January. Robert Reed moves his family to Scotland's Outer Hebrides in the 1990s. But despite his best efforts to fit in, Robert is always seen as an outsider. And as the legendary and violent Hebridean storms rage around him, begins to unravel. For her entire life, Maggie McKay has sensed something is wrong with her. When Maggie was 5 years old, she announced that a man on Kilmary had been murdered. Her unfounded claim drew media attention and turned the locals against each other, creating rifts that never mended. Now, nearly 20 years later, Maggie is determined to find out what really happened and what the islanders are hiding. But when she begins to receive ominous threats, Maggie is forced to consider how much she's willing to risk to discover the horrifying truth. So Carol was the author of Mirrorland, which some of you may have read last year, and she writes a really, really well-done thriller. House in the Pines by Anna Reyes is Reese's book club pick for January. Maya was a high school senior when her best friend Aubrey mysteriously dropped dead in front of the enigmatic man named Frank. 7 years later, Maya's past comes rushing back when she comes across a recent YouTube video in which a young woman suddenly keels over and dies in a diner while sitting across from a man no other than Frank. She heads to her Berkshire's hometown to relive the fateful summer, the influence of Frank once had on her, and the obsessive jealousy that nearly destroyed her family with her friendship with Aubrey. At her mother's house, she excavates fragments of her past and notices hidden messages in her deceased Guatemalan father's book that didn't stand out to her earlier. To save herself, she must understand a story written before she was born. So we've got the House in the Pines. Lots of missing people, folks. Lots of missing people. Next, we've got Picture in the Sand, which we actually reviewed this week on Bookreporter by Peter Blauner. When Alex Hassan gets accepted to an Ivy League university, his Middle Eastern Egyptian American family is filled with pride and excitement. But that joy turns to shock when they discover that he's run off to the Middle East to join a holy war instead. When he refuses to communicate with everyone else, his loving grandfather, Ali, emails him one last plea. If Alex will stay in touch, he will share with Alex, and only Alex, a manuscript containing the secret story of his own life that he has kept hidden from his family until now. It's a tale of his romantic and heartbreaking past, rooted in Hollywood in the post-revolutionary Egypt of the 1950s, which he is now forced to unearth to save his grandson, who's about to make the same tragic mistakes he made so many years ago. So we've got a quote here from Stephen King. On the rare occasion I read a book that reminds me of why I fell in love with storytelling in the first place, this is such a book. Next, we've got The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, and we are also reviewing this book this week. And I read this over the break as well. As kids, Emily and Chess were inseparable, but by their 30s, their bond has been strained by the demand of their adult lives. So when Chess suggests a girls' trip to Italy, Emily jumps at the chance to reconnect with her best friend. Villa Estates in Oviedo is a high-end holiday home now, but in 1974, it was known as Villa Rosado and rented for the summer by a notorious rock star, Noel Gordon. In an attempt to reignite his creative spark, Noel invites up-and-coming musician Pierce Sheldon to join him, as well as Pierce's girlfriend, Mary, and her stepsister, Lara. But he also sets in motion a chain of events that leads Mary to write one of the greatest horror novels of all time, and Lara to compose a platinum album, and it ends in Pierce's brutal murder. The Villa is inspired by, hold on for this, folks, Fleetwood Mac, the Manson murders, and an infamous summer Percy and Mary Shelley spent with Lord Byron at a Lake Geneva castle, the birthplace of Frankenstein. So as you read, look for all three of those references throughout the book. Next, from Paul Levine, we've got Early Grave. And if any of you know Paul Levine, he's got the author of this Jake Lasseter series, and he swears that this is the last book in the series. I've heard Paul say that before, but he says definitively this is the last. And it's a lot of fun because Paul's got a history of loving football. He went to Penn State, loves Penn State football. He just got back from going to the Rose Bowl. And so when he takes on a story like this, you know it's going to be a lot of fun. His godson suffers a catastrophic injury in the high school football game. And what he is doing is suing to abolish the sport and thus become public enemy number one. Let's not just worry about kids of a certain age playing. No, the sport should go away. The former NFL linebacker, which is what Jake Lasseter does, also battles CTE, the fatal brain disease. With his personal life in tatters, he's in couples therapy with his fiancee, Dr. Melissa Gold, and he vows to live long enough to fix the relationship and achieve justice for his godson. It's the final novel in the series that began with the international bestseller To Speak for the Dead in 1990. And all the Lasseter books are standalones that can be joined in any order, and they can be. You can pluck anyone out and do that. And they're also Kindle Unlimited titles as well. So there you've got Early Grave. Next, we've got from Mary Kubica, Just the Nicest Couple. It's on sale this week. She did an event a couple of nights ago, and boy, there was a full room for this. And it was so nice to see people back out at events again and enjoying them. So there were hundreds of people. I just absolutely love seeing this. So Jake Hayes is missing. That much is certain. At first, his wife, Nina, thinks he's blowing off steam at a friend's house after their heated fight the night before. Then a day goes by, 2 days, 5 days. Jake's still nowhere to be found. Lily Scott, Nina's friend and co-workers, thinks that she may have been the last to see Jake before he went missing. After Lily confesses everything to her husband, Christian, the two decide that nobody can find out what happened leading up to Jake's disappearance, especially not Nina. But Nina is out there looking for her husband, and she won't stop until the truth is discovered. They're just the nicest couple. How many times do you see that? Oh, aren't they just the nicest couple? Okay, we've got Reef Road. This is my first Bets on pick from the year by Deborah Goodrich Royce. And I read this book last week. I could not get off the couch reading it. And I am going to be talking to her next week about how she wrote this book, where she came up with the story. And a lot of it is actually based on something that happened when to her mother. Years ago, her mother's best friend was killed in a terrible, terrible, terrible stabbing. And she was murdered. And as a result, this has always haunted Deborah's mother of like what happened with this person. And what she does is she weaves a story of a woman who's passed away in with a present day story as well. And here, a young woman's life seems so perfect until her family goes missing. The writer lives alone with her dog and collects arcane murder statistics. What each of them stands to lose as they sneak around the do not enter tape blocking Reef Road is exposed by the steady tightening of the cincture and closing them. So we've got somebody that's looking for something and someone who's looking with her dog and looking for murder statistics. It's a nod to the true crime that inspired it. It probes unhealed generational scars in a wrenching and original work of fiction. And the book is so clever. It is told from 2 points of view. It's told from the writer and it's told from the wife. And as you're going through the book, you're hearing from both different points of view. Very, very, very well done. Actually, I heard about this book back in July when there was a pre-pub lunch for it. And I'm sorry that I didn't get to it till now, but also part of me is so happy that I've read it so close to when it came out that I can share enthusiasm for it with you and also set up an interview with Deborah and talk to her about it. Next, from Bret Easton Ellis, we've got The Shards. It's on sale on January 17th. 17-year-old Bret is a senior at exclusive Buckley prep school when a new student arrives with a mysterious past. Robert Mallory is shielding a secret from Bret and his friends, even as he becomes part of their tightly knit circle. Bret's obsession with Mallory is equaled only by his increasingly unsettling preoccupation with the Trawler, a serial killer on the loose who seems to be drawing ever closer to Bret and his friends. The coincidences are uncanny, but they were also filtered through the imagination of a teenager whose gifts for constructing narrative from the filaments of his own life are about to make him one of the most explosive literary sensations of his generation. Can he trust his friends or his mind to make sense of the danger that they need to be in? And you probably remember Bret as the author of American Psycho years ago. Next, from Jane Harper, we've got The Exiles, and this is going to be part of our winter reading promotion that is going to go up this Friday with contests throughout the next 4 or 5 weeks. This is on sale on January 31st. Federal investigator Aaron Falk is on his way to a small town in the deep in the southern Australian wine country for the christening of an old friend's baby. But mystery follows him even on vacation. This weekend marks the 1-year anniversary of Kim Gillespie's disappearance. 1 year ago, at a busy town festival on a warm spring night, Kim safely tucked her sleeping baby into her stroller, then vanished into the crowd. No one has seen her since. Falk and his own buddy Reiko can't leave the case alone. As Falk soaks up life in the lush valley, he's welcomed into the tight-knit circle of Kim's friends and loved ones, but the group may be more fractured than it seems. Remember, it's always something than it seems. Remember when we're reading thrillers, we always joke about that. Jane lives in Australia. I love the opportunity to be able to talk to her again if we can figure out the time difference thing. She was absolutely terrific to speak with the last time. And I love hearing how she pulls the story together. Where a story is set matters a lot to her. Setting is huge. And she usually knows that before she walks into what's going to happen to the characters. So I want to see how that plays through here. Now we're going to do some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. We're going to start out with Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch's The Nazi Conspiracy, the secret plot to kill Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill. In 1943, as the war against Nazi Germany raged abroad, President Franklin Roosevelt had a critical goal, a face-to-face sit-down with his allies, Stalin and Winston Churchill. This first ever meeting of the Big Three in Tehran, Iran, would decide some of the most critical strategic details of the war. Yet, when the Nazis found out about the meeting, their own secret plan took shape, and an assassination plan that would have changed history. Just think about that. A true story filled with daring rescues, body doubles, and political intrigue, The Nazi Conspiracy details FDR's pivotal meeting in Tehran and the deadly Nazi plot against the heads of state of the three major Allied powers who attended it. So in Brad's hands with Josh, you know they do a ton of research behind the scenes. And it's interesting because Brad is known so much for his thrillers and for his fiction writing, his books for children, but he also loves doing a book like this where you just immerse yourself in research and figure out how to tell a story. I don't know if you've heard of this book. I'm not sure. It's called Spare, and it's by this guy that you may have heard of, Prince Harry. Yeah, he's the Duke of Sussex. Okay, it was one of the most searing images of the 20th century. Two boys, two princes, walking behind their mother's coffin as the world watched in sorrow and horror. As Diana, Princess of Wales, was laid to rest, billions wondered what the princes must be thinking and feeling, and how their lives would play from that point on. For Harry, this is that story at last. With unflinching honesty, Spare is a landmark publication full of insight, revelation, self-examination, and hard-run wisdom about the eternal power of love over grief. I'm sure that you have seen at least one or a story on the news about this or on some talk show, or you have read some articles about it, but this is the book. So the book is here now. It's out yesterday. Yesterday it was out, and supposedly is doing all kinds of land offers sales. So I know that there are a lot of stories in this that I've uncovered that I did not know anything about, and like way too much about the prince that I didn't need to hear, but here you've got Spare. And I just want you to know, my second son was born, I didn't call him Spare. Just, I didn't have that kind of feeling about him. I need to tell him that his birthday's coming up. I need to, maybe that will get him able to love me even more than he does now. Joking. Okay, next we've got Children of the State, Stories of Survival and Hope in the Juvenile Justice System by Jeff Hobbs. I am a huge fan of Jeff Hobbs' work. His last book, I can't remember the title of it, came out during the pandemic, and I don't think it got the due that it should have gotten, because his writing about a situation, his involvement with characters is absolutely something that I remember from The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace being so well done. And I remember reading that book pre-publication, and I was interviewing him. And it was so that he had gotten into the characters and really cared about Robert Peace and how his life had been taken away from him and what had happened along the way for him as well. Well, there's been very little written about juvenile detention and the path to justice. For many kids, a mistake made at 13 or 14, often resulting from external factors, coupled with a biologically immature brain, can resonate through the rest of their lives, making high school difficult, college nearly impossible, and a middle-class life a mere fantasy. In Children of the State, Jeff Hobbs challenges any preconceived perceptions about how the juvenile justice system works. He presents 3 different true stories that show the day-to-day life and challenges faced by those living and working in juvenile programs, educators, counselors, and most importantly, the children. And this is one of those books I want to get my hands on, because there are things that we hear about in life, but we don't delve deeply into. And I can always rely on Jeff to do a really good job of delving into a story. Next, we've got The Love You Save by Goldie Taylor. It's coming on January 31st. Aunt Gerald takes in anyone who asks, but the conditions are harsh. For her young niece, Goldie Taylor, abandoned by her mother and coping with trauma of her own, life in Gerald's East St. Louis comes with nothing but a threadbare blanket on the living room floor. But amid pain and anguish, Goldie discovers a secret. She can find kinship among writers like James Baldwin and Toni Morrison. She can find hope in a nurturing teacher who helps her find her voice, and books, she realized, can save her life. Goldie Taylor's debut memoir shines a light on the strictures of race, class, and gender in a post-Jim Crow America, while offering a nuanced, empathetic portrait of a family in a pitched battle for its very soul. There we've got The Love You Save, and I love that picture on the cover. Now we've got some February titles for you to look forward to. And we're doing February and March this time because Tom has got this way, the way the calendar breaks right now, we've got to give you both because we'll be back on February 8th. And I always trust Tom Donadio for editorial direction. So I don't even need to look at a calendar to know we should be doing February and March. Tom, I trust you. So we're going to start out with Hank Phillippe Ryan's The House Guest. I actually read this over the break. It's really super well done. I think it's the best of Hank's books that I've read. Alice McCallan is terrified when she's dumped by her wealthy and powerful husband. With a devastating divorce looming, she begins to suspect her toxic and manipulative soon-to-be ex is scheming to ruin her. When the FBI shows up at her door, Alyssa knows she really needs a friend. And then she gets one, a seductive new friend who's running from a dangerous relationship of her own. Alyssa offers Bree Lawrence the safety of her guest house, and the two become confidants. And then Bree makes a heart-stopping, tempting offer. Maybe Alyssa and Bree can solve each other's problems. But no one is who they seem, nothing's what they seem, and the fates and fortune of these two women twist and turn until the shocking truth emerges. And it really does. It's this build that goes like this, like this, like this, and you're not trusting anybody at one point. You're just like, wait a second, I don't think Alyssa's husband is really that bad, or is he really that bad, or who is on which side and who is doing what to whom. She does a really good job, The House Guest. Jojo Moyes, you know her as the author of The Giver of Stars, and here we've got Someone Else's Shoes. It's coming on February 7th. Nisha Cantor lives in the globe-trotting life of the seriously wealthy until her husband announces a divorce and cuts her off. Nisha is determined to hang on to her glamorous life, but in the meantime, she must scramble to cope. She doesn't even have the shoes she was until a moment ago standing in. That's because Sam Kemp, in the bleakest point of her life, has accidentally taken Nisha's gym bag. But Sam can hardly have the time to worry about a lost gym bag. She's struggling to keep herself and her family afloat. But when she tries on Nisha's 6-inch high Christian Watton red crocodile shoes, the resulting jolt of confidence makes her realize something must change, and that thing is herself. So if you ever know what the high Christian Louboutin red crocodile shoes would look like, they'd have red soles as well, like his shoes do. There you go. When he's walking someone else's shoes, what does happen for you? Then from Greg Hurwitz, we've got the book about my latest crush. It's called The Last Orphan. Yes, Evan Smoke. I've got a huge crush on him. It's okay. My husband knows. My husband's already read this and said, yes, you'll completely enjoy it, Carol. He is as big a fan as I am. It's an Orphan X novel. As a child, Evan Smoke was plucked out of a group home, raised and trained as an off-the-books assassin for the government as part of the orphan program. When he broke with the program and went deep underground, he left a lot of secrets in his head that the government would do anything to make sure never got out. He remade himself as a nowhere man, dedicated to helping the most desperate in their times of trouble. Evan found himself slowly back on the government's radar doing this, but Orphan X has always been several steps ahead of his pursuers until he makes one little mistake. Now the president has him in her control and offers Evan a deal. Eliminate a rich, powerful man she says is too dangerous to live, and she'll let Evan survive. When Evan left the program, he swore to only use his skills against those who really deserve it. And now he has to decide what's more important, his principles or his life. So there we've got The Last Orphan. Next, we've got I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay, who is the author of the Pulitzer Prize finalist, The Great Believers. It's coming on February 21st. A successful film professor and podcaster, Bodie Kane is content to forget her past, the family tragedy that marred her adolescence, her 4 largely miserable years at a New Hampshire boarding school, and the murder of her former roommate, Thalia Keefe, in the spring of their senior year. Though the circumstances surrounding Thalia's death and the conviction of their school's athletic trainer, Omar Evans, are hotly debated ones, Bodie prefers and needs to let sleeping dogs lie. But when the Granby school invites her back to teach a course, Bodie is okay, this is going to be one of my favorite words that I probably will mispronounce. Inexorably, I have to use big vocabulary words, but inexorably drawn to the case and its increasingly apparent flaws. In their rush to convict Omar, did the school and police overlook other suspects? Is the real killer still out there? You know, funny thing, I'm pronouncing words. I don't know if I've ever shared it with you guys. Both of my sons were sight readers, which means they never learned to sound out words. And to this day, they say some things that will just make you laugh. My younger son, it's never the epitome, it's epitome. And it's not a pint of milk, it's a pint. And it's just like so funny because he'll be in the middle of a sentence, even at the age of 27, going on 28. And he would come out and say something like this and just be like, what are you saying? But it's the way he read the word when he was little and stuck with him. Next book's by Will Schwabe, and I actually loved him. Love this book, love Will's writing rather. He wrote the End of Your Life book club, which he was in with his mom when she was diagnosed with cancer. And they were each reading a book and talking about it with each other to make those days a little bit better than the dark days that they were. So now he's back with We Should Not Be Friends, the story of a friendship. When Will was a junior in college, he had already met everyone he cared to know. He also knew exactly what he wanted to avoid, the jocks. The jocks wore baseball caps and moved in packs, filling boisterous tables in the dining hall, and on the whole seemed to be another species entirely. All this changed dramatically when Will collided with Chris Mackey, known to just about everyone as Mackey. Mackey was physically imposing, loud, a star wrestler who was determined to become a Navy SEAL. Thanks to a strangely liberating circumstances of a little-known secret society at Yale, the two forged a bond that became a mainstay of each other's lives as they repeatedly lost and found each other and themselves in the years after graduation. So this is We Should Not Be Friends. And I just love that idea because there's some people that you just like, how are we friends? How do we ever get to be friends with each other? Next, we've got some February titles that were featured in November's presentation, just to refresh you. First is the Pam Jenoff, the codename Sapphire, out on February 7th. For those that you weren't watching last time, I'll just fill you in. In 1942, Hannah Martel has narrowly escaped Nazi Germany after her fiancé was killed in a pogrom. When her ship bound for America is turned away at a port, she has nowhere to go but to her cousin Lily, who is living with her family in Brussels. Fearful for her life, Hannah is desperate to get out of occupied Europe, but with no safe way to leave, she must return to the dangerous underground work she thought she'd left behind. Seeking help, Hannah joins the Sapphire Line, a secret resistance network led by a mysterious woman named Micheline and her enigmatic brother, Matteo. And when a grave mistake causes Lily's family to be arrested and slated for deportation to Auschwitz, Hannah finds herself torn between her loyalties. How much can Hannah willing to sacrifice to save the people she loves? That codename Sapphire, February 7th. Got the House of Eve. I have been hearing nothing but fabulous things about this book. By Sadika Johnson. She was author of Yellow Wife, which was one of my bets on selections. And everybody keeps telling they're betting that I'm going to love this one just as much. 1950 Philly, 15-year-old Ruby Pearsall is on track to become the first in her family to attend college, despite having a mother more interested in keeping a man than raising a daughter. But a taboo love affair threatens to pull her back down to poverty and desperation. Eleanor Quaros arrives in Washington, D.C. with ambition and secrets. And when she meets William Pride at Howard University, they fall madly in love. But William hails from one of the DC's elite, wealthy Black families. His parents don't let just anyone into the fold. Eleanor hopes that a baby will make her finally feel at home in William's family and grant her the life she's been searching for. But having a baby and fitting in is easier said than done. When their stories collide in the most unexpected of ways, Ruby and Eleanor will both make decisions that will shape the trajectory of their lives. And it's interesting because Sadiqa's grandmother actually had her mother, I think it was either 14, 15, 16, when she was a teenager. And that very much influenced her writing of the story because she knew what it was like to be able to talk to her grandmother about what it was like to be a teenage mother. Next one is It's One of Us by J.T. Ellison. And this is also going to be one of our winter reading titles, giveaway titles. And it's coming out on February 21st. Olivia Bender desperately wants to be a mother, but fertility treatments and IVF keep failing. Just when she feels she's at her lowest point, the police deliver shocking news to Olivia and her husband, Park. DNA results show that Park's son is the prime suspect in a murder investigation. Olivia's relieved, knowing this is a mistake because the Benders don't have any children. Then in a confession, many years ago, her husband donated sperm to a clinic. He has no idea how many times it was sold or how many children he sired. As the murder investigation goes deeper, more terrible truths come to light. With every revelation, Olivia must face the unthinkable. The man she married has fathered a killer. But can she hold that against him when she keeps such dark secrets of her own? There we've got It's One of Us. Then we've got, because I've heard a lot about Colleen Hoover this year, her book Never Never, that she's writing for the first time with another author, with Taryn Fisher. It's coming on February 28th. What we've got is these Charlie and Silas have been best friends since they could walk. They've been in love since the age of 14. But as of this morning, they're complete strangers. Their first kiss, their first fight, the moment they fell in love, every memory has vanished. And now Charlie and Silas must work together to uncover the truth about what happened to them and why. But the more they learn about the couple they used to be, the more they question why they were ever together to begin with. Forgetting is terrifying, but remembering may be worse. So here's some March titles to look forward to. So now we're plunging into the end of the first quarter. Oh my gosh. Okay, how many people remember reading Defending Jacob? Loved that book. Loved it right to the end. Loved the show that was on Apple about it. Really well done. Well, William Landy is back all these years later, folks, with All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me. It's coming on March 7th. This is going to be big. One afternoon in November 1975, 10-year-old Miranda Markin comes home from school to find her house eerily quiet. Mother's missing. Nothing else is out of place. There's no sign of a struggle. Her mom's pocketbook remains in the front hall in its usual spot. So begins a mystery that will span a lifetime. What happened to Jane Larkin? Investigators suspect Jane's husband, a criminal defense attorney. Dan Larkin would surely be an expert in outfoxing the police, but no evidence is found linking him to a crime, and the case fades from public memory. Jane's 3 children, Alex, Jeff, and Miranda, are left to be raised by a man who may have murdered their mother. 2 decades later, the remains of Jane Larkin are found. The investigation is awakened, and the children, now grown, are forced to choose sides. So here we've got All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me. Mark that one down. Next, from Sarah Penner, who wrote The Lost Apothecary. Remember that book was a huge sensation last year. We've got the London Seance Society. It's coming on March 7th. In 1873, an abandoned children's chateau on the outskirts of Paris, a dark seance is about to take place by an acclaimed spiritualist. Let's see if we can do this one. Laudeline Dallaire. Known worldwide for her talent conjuring the spirits of murder victims to ascertain the identities of people who killed them. She's highly sought after by widows and investigators alike. Lena Wilkes has come to Paris to find answers about her sister's death, but to do so, she must embrace the unknown and overcome her own logic-driven bias against the occult. When Vaudeline is beckoned to England to help solve a high-profile murder, Lena accompanies her as an understudy. But as the women team up with the powerful men of London's exclusive Seance Society to solve the mystery, they begin to suspect that they are not merely out to solve a crime, but perhaps entangled in one themselves. So there's the London Seance Society. Now we've got Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. Pineapple Street follows 3 women in one wealthy Brooklyn clan. Darlie, the eldest daughter in the well-connected old money Stockton family, followed her heart, trading her job and her inheritance for motherhood, but giving up far too much in the process. Sasha, a middle-class New England girl, has married into the Brooklyn Heights family and finds herself cast as the, let's see, Arrive Stay outsider. And Georgiana, the baby of the family, has fallen in love with someone she can't have and must decide what kind of person she wants to be. So there you've got Pineapple Street. They say it's vibrant and hilarious, brimming with truth. I've already requested a copy of it to read in advance. It just looks like that cover looks like a lot of fun. Next, we've got Wayward by Emily Hart, which is also coming on March 7th. In 2019, under the cover of darkness, Kate flees London, her ramshackle wayward cottage, inherited from great aunt she barely remembers. The cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate, but she begins to suspect that her great aunt had a secret. 1619, Alpha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer. As a girl, Alpha's mother taught her their magic, which is rooted in a deep knowledge of the natural world. But as evidence for witchcraft is set out against Alpha, she knows it will take all her powers to maintain freedom. 1942, as World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. Her mother, long deceased, was rumored to have gone mad before her death. The only traces Violet has are a locket bearing the initial W and the word wayward scratched into the baseboard of her bedroom. So there you go. 3 different time frames, 3 different women, 2 are been in the same place. What's going on from there? Wayward. Next, we've got Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. This is one of the books that we were giving away in the contest that ended today for our book club readers to sit there and say, what books are you, tell us what they read as their favorite book last year for their group and the favorite book they read on their own. And this is one of the 6 titles from the first quarter of the year that we were giving away. You probably remember Anne as the author of the Dear Edward that came out a couple of years ago. William Waters grew up in a house silenced by tragedy, where his parents could hardly bear to look at him, much less love him. So when he meets the spirited and ambitious Julia Padovano in his freshman year of college, it's as if the world is lit up around him. With Julia comes her family, as she and her 3 sisters are inseparable. With this family, William experiences a newfound contentment. Every moment in their house is filled with loving chaos. But then darkness from William's path surfaces, jeopardizing not only Julia's carefully orchestrated plans for their future, but the sisters' unshakable devotion to one another. The result is a catastrophic family rift that changes their lives for generations. Will the loyalty that once rooted them be strong enough to draw them back together when it matters most? So there we've got Hello Beautiful. Next, from Jeanette Walls, the author of the Glass Castle and Half Broke Horses, we've got Hang the Moon. Sally Kincaid is the daughter of the charismatic Duke Kincaid. Born in the turn of the 20th century into a life full of comfort and privilege, Sally remembers little about her mother, who died in a violent argument with the Duke. By the time she's just 8 years old, the Duke has remarried and had a son, Eddie. While Sally is her father's daughter, sharp-witted, resourceful Eddie is his mother's son, timid and cerebral. When Sally tries to teach young Eddie to be more like their father, her daredevil coaching leads to an accident, and Sally's cast out. And 9 years later, she returns, determined to reclaim her place in the family. They're a lot more complicated than Sally expected, and she enters a world of conflict and lawlessness. So there you've got Hang the Moon. From Lisa Scottolini, we've got her 2nd book of historical fiction. She absolutely has done a great job on this one as well. It is set in Sicily. And I don't know how many of you are following her where she does her Facebook Live events on Monday evenings. During these events, she actually runs little videos that talk about her research when she was in Sicily and how it infused her writing of the book. And I believe that there are 27 episodes of this. She's doing this for a very long period of time, every Monday night at 7:30 on Facebook Live. The video shows, and she talks about it. And those who pre-order the book are also eligible to win prizes. It's a heck of a lot of fun. So here what we've got is Franco Fioravanti is a lemon grower toiling on the estate of a baron. Determined to secure a better future, he will do anything to prove his loyalty to the baron. When the baron asks him to kidnap a little boy named Dante, Franco makes a decision that will change his life and even the history of Sicily forever. Gaetano Catalano is an idealistic young lawyer and a member of a secret society of aristocrats who investigate crime in Palermo. He sets out to find the boy and punish the kidnapper, but his mission leads him to a darker place than he had ever imagined. Meanwhile, Mafalda Pancari is a new mother rejoicing at the birth of her daughter Lucia when disaster strikes. As Alfredo Antonio is a reclusive goatherd under constant threat of being discovered as a Jew. How the lives of these characters collide makes Loyalty an epic tale of good versus evil, and the story twists and turns to its monumental showdown. Book is one that will keep you reading, keep you turning the pages. I also used to joke with Lisa that what I would do is on Monday nights, I'd first watch her on Facebook Live, and then I would go watch The White Lotus that was set in Sicily. And actually, The White Lotus, any of you watch that show on HBO, is set at actually a 4 seasons resort there. And Lisa actually stayed there when she was doing her research for Loyalty. So it's a lot of fun to see all the ways that this book tripped over, like what I was watching on TV at the same time. Here's some notable January paperback releases. We've got The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, The Maid by Nita Prose, Carl Bernstein's Chasing History, Dinah Chamberlain's Last House on the Street, and The Maid and Last House on the Street were both bets on selections last year. The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. Magnolia Palace is going to be our next reading group guides. Tell us what your book group's reading prize. So if you are interested in reading that book and read it with your group, we're going to have 3 groups of 12 will receive copies of the book. We've got Violetta by Isabella Allende on sale on the 24th and Left on 10th by Delia Ephron on sale on the 31st. I've been doing some catching up on with some authors. There are a couple that we have left from last year where I talked to Bully Market. We talked to Jamie Fiore Higgins, with The Last Party with Claire McIntosh, and Signal Fires with Danny Shapiro was my first interview this year. We had a fabulous time chatting. It was a great way to kick off the year. And it was the first day we were back, and we're sitting having this fabulous conversation about Signal Fires and also about the podcast that she hosts as well, and how she works in finding guests and doing things with that, which was fun. We've got our reviewers top books of 2022 if you missed that event. And also I talk quickly about my 40 bets on selections. We had a friend over the holidays and she can't believe I remember all the titles, and I did do a little bit reading up ahead of time. Our next Bookaccino Live event is going to be with Nita Prose talking about The Maid. It's going to be on Wednesday evening, January 25th at 8:00 p.m. We hope that many of you can join us. It was a New York Times bestseller, a Good Morning America book club pick, a book reporter bets on selection. I had the pleasure of interviewing her in Morristown at the Morristown Festival of Books, and she is just somebody dynamite, and I'm looking forward to having her for you all to get to meet her as well. Our next Bookaccino Live afternoon event, where we'll be talking about books coming out February 7th through February 28th and peeking ahead at March and April, because once again, Tom Donadio's whole mathematical theory about why we're doing March and April, I am just buying into. It's going to be on Wednesday, February 8th at 2:00 in the afternoon. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month for Bookaccino Live.